Yesterday, I did take my class my sixth grade class. This is a class I have after lunch. I have them for reading. I took them on a field trip. It's the first field trip I have taken with any class here. There have been quite a few field trips this year, many more than last year, and so I worked with Paul Taisican, who was the homeroom teacher in the class. So most of the kids had never been to the places I took them, so we decided to make around the island trip. So I told the children to bring old clothes, flashlights, and pencil and paper to write with. They would take notes, and I worked it out with Mr. Taisican so that I had it was a combination English lesson, art lesson, and social studies lesson. I had this book about Mariana's prehistory, and it has some archaeological things in it about Rota, and it has this legend about Taga, who was this ancient Chamorro chief who was very strong. And so I read this legend to them, and we talked about what Taga stones are. I think I have told you before what they're kind of. There's a shaft part that's kind of a straight column coming up, and then there's this kind of a cup-shaped capstone that goes on top of them. And they're throughout the Marianas. They're kind of like the Eastern Island type of thing. I think you've probably seen pictures of some. I know you have that I've sent home. But anyway, these are what we went to see. I borrowed this big gray van, which Ken Jones left here last summer when he was here on his cattle drive. And it was a former Navy paddy wagon, so it's a pretty big thing, and it's got four-wheel drive and everything in it. And we used the school Jeep, so the janitor up there, Manny Babauta, drove the Jeep with about 7 kids in it, and I drove this paddy wagon with about 16 or so children. There are 24 kids in the class. So we left school about 8:30, and we drove up toward the airport and stopped at Mochung, which is the area of the most beautiful beach here on Rota. And this is an area that has the greatest number of Taga stones or Laddie stones. Both names are used to describe them. So we walked in and we looked at them, and there are also some of these big old Chamorro mortars, great big grindstones that were brought down from the northern islands by the ancient Chamorros many years ago. And so we looked at those, and then the children took notes on what they saw because we had talked about them before, and then they drew pictures of the Taga stones and what they look like now and what they think they might have looked like when they were built. You see, many of them, the capstone has been knocked off, so they're not in the shape or the condition that they were in when they were erected. No one really knows what they were used for, but they think they were probably a base for a house. But after we went to Mochung, we drove up to the Neivis Quarry, which is where the biggest Taga stones of anywhere are located. And these were, I've taken pictures, they've been sent home, I think you've probably seen them, but these are the big ones. They have not been erected. They were quarried, but they still lay where they were quarried. They have not been moved. So many of the children had not seen these, and they were just really in awe, seeing these big, big stones. And so we stopped and had lunch there. The children all brought their lunches along. And then we proceeded to drive around the island. We stopped at one of these big caves, and it was a cave that we'd been to before, and I'd tried to take pictures in, but it was so dark. Even with a flash, it didn't come out, so I've tried again. I picked up an electronic flash, a strobe light, for my camera when I was in Guam. So I have tried to take pictures inside, so we'll see if those come out now this time. But it has a lot of stalactites and stalagmites in it, and a lot of bat guano, and it's quite a big, very damp, very interesting cave. And the kids had never seen anything like this either. I mean, they've seen caves before, but not with all these formations inside and it being so dark. So after we went to the cave, we went down to this peninsula or point of land that's called Two Brothers Point because 2 brothers were killed there fishing about 2 years ago off the reef, so they have a monument out there. And the children, it was a very beautiful view. This cliff, it just drops off straight into the sea. It's about a 200-foot drop, and so it was very picturesque. And of course, the sea was happened to be very rough at the time, and it just was very beautiful. Then on the way back around the island, we stopped at the river, but of course, since it's been so dry, the river has dried up. It has not affected the water supply for the village, however. The water cave is still quite a bit of water in it, but it has there is not enough water to fill up the river like there usually is in the dry season. So we went on and we came to these these big towers where the Japanese brought their phosphate that they mined on the Sabana down to load into the ships. And under this one tower, which is used for loading, was used for loading phosphate, there's a cave underneath. And Kit and I just recently found this a few weeks ago. And so the kids went down into it. It's kind of like a cavern. And the water comes into the cave from underneath the reef. And you can go inside the cave and swim in this big, it's like a big pool in there. So all the kids went swimming. We just had a really great time, especially since we were all so dusty. The island is so dry. It's just amazing. So they had just a wonderful time. We got back to school about 2 o'clock, and it was a most successful trip. So they're writing reports and going to turn them in on Monday about the field trip. And I was really pleased that it had gone so well. And it's really kind of interesting, me just being here on the island a little while and going around and showing these children their own island. It's kind of a unique experience, I guess.